Okay. First of all, if you're using very fine thread, you're probably better off keeping it either in your pocket or warming it up between your palm of your hand for a few minutes. Some waxes are harder than others, and over time they do become very brittle. So just warm the wax up in your thumb for a bit, and then take, okay, maybe a foot and a half of silk and rub it through fairly briskly, trying to avoid any sort of twists up. Don't let it, I'm trying to do this in reverse. Just pull it through and rub it through again with your hand just to clear up any clumps. And that's it really. But get into the habit of using wax. It's a lot
what does
easier.
That do? What is the point of it?
Okay, wax has two main functions. It strengthens the silk.
Okay.
If you can imagine, sort of cobbler's wax was always used to strengthen the thread. And when you tie it onto the hook shank, it aids the grip of the thread. So
Right.
it doesn't slip. It doesn't slip laterally.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So get into the habit of using it. A lot of silks you can buy are ready waxed, but it doesn't do any harm to just run it through. So we've got the hook. I've got a size 12 here. If you've got the hook in the vise.
Yep.
We'll start. Yep. So just pinch the thread in the left hand and draw it over the shank, just behind the eye. Don't put it too close up to the eye. The reason being is that later on we will be tying obviously more complicated flies, so you want to reduce the amount of thread you use at the what would be the eye. So we tie it behind, and now I'm just going to lift that little tag up and put a few turns behind it before I snip it off. And then run down the body right to left and altering the angle of the thread to avoid the barb, and just let the bobbin holder down. And if you're using a clamp vise, just let the bobbin holder dangle at the corner of the table. Don't let it sort of swing up like that. I'm not sure if you can see that swinging around now.
Can, Mark, yes.
Yep, because all that does is tighten up the thread.
Everyone with us so far?
Yeah.
All good?
Yep.
Frank, you okay?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get some pheasant tail.
Hold on.
Pull them out 45 degrees, and then just take a little bunch, 5 or 6 fibers, and pull them so you're holding them up to the vise. And we're just going to grip them by the tip. So say a very fine 1/8 of an inch is great. 2 turns just to hold them in place, and then 1 turn in front. And they should stick up away from the hook, up in the air at the moment. The original pattern was about 1/8 of an inch. If you have a long side tail feather, sometimes you can get, a lot more out of it. It depends on the feather you're using, actually. I mean, some of the center pheasant tails are quite short, so it depends on the length of the fibers as much as anything as to what you can get away with. The old way of tying the Sawyer pheasant tail is to wrap it round the copper wire, and that uses up a lot of the length of the pheasant tail. You had to be very careful that you chose the very longest side feathers in tying a Sawyer's pheasant tail. But we're now going to put a little bit of the wire on. I would suggest you just run off 4 inches or so, not too much at the moment, and make sure you put it, there should be a little nick in the side of the spool.
Yeah.
Just make sure you put it back in tight, because otherwise if you don't, it'll all unravel. Cut the wire off using the thick end of the scissors rather than the tip.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Just rub it between your fingers just to straighten it out. You'll see how it'll sort of straighten out. Don't do it too hard. Yeah.
Good. Yep.
Okay. Great. Now then, we're going to put the wire on the hook. So just hold it close to the end of the thing. And what I'm doing, I'm just pulling it back. Can you see that? Because you don't need to waste that amount of wire when you can just put it
If you just drop your
into the body.
your right hand mark, the hook came in focus there. I think it was just a little bit out of focus, but yeah, I saw what you were doing there.
Yeah. So I put 3 turns on the wire just to hold it, anchor it down, and then I'm going to run up the body to that point. Can you see the little sort of notch where I cut the silk off? I'm not sure how clear it is. So we'll just run up to there. The reason why we did 3 turns to hold the wire in place at the base of the pheasant tail is if we just went up, what would happen when we turned the wire, it would come up and distort. So it would ride up over the locking turns. So that's why you just put a few extra turns in to hold it completely in place. Now I'm just going to wind the pheasant tail round, touching turns, and when we get to this point here, by placing the silk over in the face of the hole, we can lock it into place. So once, 2 turns, that will hold it in place. And what I like to do is to run it up a few times. The reason being is, if I undo these turns, say we just had, I think there's 1 turn there. When we put the wire rib on, very often the silk just slips away. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I prefer to put a good number of turns in is because you can stop that from slipping over. And when we come to the point there, we can just turn it over. 4 or 5 turns, doesn't really make any difference. And then pull the wire back towards the bend. Okay.
You know, your fine wire there will hold all the materials in place. And when Mr. Trout ravages your fly, it won't fall to bits on the first take. And then you'll, in your competitions fishing for England, you'll say, well, Will was right. the fly hasn't disintegrated on the first take.
Yeah. Okay, so we can now just pull the fibers back, just a few little turns to hold it in place. There may just be a little sort of nibble of that wire. You can just move out of the way.
Mark, you're using your thumbnail there principally, aren't you, to manipulate that wire? It's just a small
just
detail,
to push it down.
makes it tidy.
Yeah. And we're going to take just a small pinch of fur, just a little tiny amount, and feed it onto the silk and rub it between your finger and thumb, and it should just sort of stick to the silk. Having the silk waxed helps.
Yeah, I can imagine that bit.
Yeah. And just sort of gently manipulate it. Hold the bobbin, the tying thread bobbin, just hold that down in the left hand so the silk is tight.
Yeah.
Yeah? Can you see how that helps?
Yeah.
And just have it so it's reasonably attached to the fly. That's it. Now, what we'll do is just put 1 or 2 turns over. What I like to do is actually hold the pheasant tail up, because it will stop it from going too far back.
He now thinks I'm going to feed him.
Right. So I've put on too much fur, so I'm now going to take some off and just slide it down the silk and then pull it off. It's much easier to use too little and add to it than too much and not take it away, if you know what I mean. Because you don't want a huge bulbous head on that. Just lift the pheasant tail over the top of what you've tied in for the thorax and just put 1 turn over to hold it in place. Then lift the fibers back and put one turn. Okay, let's go for 2 turns underneath. So the fibers are sticking up in the air. 4 turns over the pheasant tail to hold it in place.
Just do that again, Mark, please, just to finish off. That's
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
So we've come from in front of the eye, like so, and we're just going to 1, 2, 3, 4, pin that feather down. So literally we've tied the fibers off. I'm now going to cut them off as tight as I can to the eye. Once I've done that, I can do the whip finish. Again, start off close to the eye and work backwards. And that will cover up the fibers we've trapped. And we'll put a few more turns on there just to hide.
Would you, can you just rewind a little bit? Sorry, can I, because I've not done one of these before at all. Sorry.
Right, okay.
So, should I detach it from the bobbin now or leave it still the bobbin on?
No, leave it as it is. We'll just do that knot. Thread is starting to fray on me a bit, but never mind.
No, I don't know what I'm doing.
You may want to try the half hitch, Mark. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think what we'll do, Mark, as this is your first time in, see that thread has gone a little bit ropey. I can sort that out, but a half hitch now. We'll hold that in place. Do another one. And at this stage, what I would do is give it a dab of varnish, leave it under tension with the bobbin holder, and just wait for it to dry a little bit, and then cut it. And that will save your fly. So I'm just going to trim all the bits of loose wire.
I can see what you're doing, Mark, there, Mark Thomas, and that's right. You're just making a loop, and you could see Mark Turner controlling that loop with his fingers just over the edge, as I did with the scissors. All you're doing is controlling that loop like an overhand knot. That's literally what a half hitch is. You put 3 of those on, and you, sir, are good to go. I don't think I put any varnish in there, did I, in your kit? But if your wife's got any Sally Hansen's nails, that or clear nail varnish will do the job.
Yeah.
I wouldn't apply it with a thick brush.
I was going to go to town and start buying kit, but I just didn't know where to start, so I stopped myself.
Oh, listen, you'll never stop buying stuff.
Yeah, don't start.
But it's a pleasure doing so, isn't it, Paul? A pleasure shopping for bits and pieces.
Oh, the shopping, yes, but you accumulate a huge amount of stuff, right?
It's all essential, Paul. I don't know what you mean. Nice, Mark Turner, and that's really it chaps, for running through the first lesson of tying a fly.